focusing on the murder of Junior in the Bronx, a mistaken identity murder at the hands of alleged Trinitarios gang members. The gang problem in New York City across all 5 boroughs, particularly in the Bronx, in pockets of the city where this remains a stubborn problem, remains our focus. Joining me here today is Junior's mother, Leandra Felice, and my colleague, Mary Murphy. Both of us have been covering this story intensely, and we wanted to make sure that we brought back Leandra because some things have been happening over the last week that we wanted to make sure you were aware of. People have been tagging both Mary and myself independently on Instagram, letting us know about these different foundations and causes and support groups in the name of Junior. Using Junior's likeness and naming Leandra and her father as supporters. And we wanted to make sure that we talked about this because Leandra has told us repeatedly that she is really not in favor or supportive of any of these efforts. And she wants to make sure that anything that is done in Junior's name is done correctly and with her attorney's permission, which is why we brought her back today to talk about everything that's on her mind, that's been happening. And Mary is going to give us some insight because just last week, she had an encounter with one of the people who was allegedly responsible for these quote-unquote fake Junior foundations, and she had quite a confrontation. So I want to thank you, Leandra, for coming out once again to talk to us, and Mary, thank you so much for joining us. Leandra, first, lay it all out there if you can. Have you been approached by a foundation or someone who is pushing a foundation that you are okay with as of today?
No, I'm not yet. I'm not ready for any foundation. I haven't given permission to anybody. Not yet. I'm not ready for that right now.
You haven't given permission to anyone?
No, I haven't given permission to anyone.
If you see any foundation links or anything on the website with a donate button saying that you're supporting it, you're saying right now that's not true, it's not okay with you.
That's not true. It's not okay with me. I haven't done any foundation, not yet. In the future, if I decide to do something, anybody who willing to do it have to talk with my lawyer. I have a lawyer in charge of everything.
Mary, you were doing your Facebook Live show in the field last week. You met up with Leandra, and during your interview, one of the people who I was on the phone with a few days before, who was allegedly responsible for one of these foundations, tried to pull Leandra away from you?
Yes, it was a week ago Monday, and we were outside the Bodega where Junior was killed, and Miss Felice was nice enough to come up to do the interview, and then the man, Khalil Abdul Muhammad, who said that he was with you from the beginning, he tried to steer you away from me before our interview was to begin. And I said, no, you're not doing that. We have this arranged. And I held my ground. But then he tried to come back into the interview when we were talking about the Bodega reopening. And then that's when you actually challenged him. You said, I didn't sign any papers, and my lawyer has to look at everything. And he was saying, we're going to discuss everything at the press conference. And then I brought you up, Jay. I said, did you have an account with PayPal? Did you take donations? And he said, we're going to discuss everything at the press conference. So there was no direct answer.
Leandra, let's talk about the Bodega owner. He just did an interview recently with another Spanish television station, Spanish language television station. His position is that he feels like he's been misrepresented. He feels like he tried to help Junior, that 911 operators kept asking him questions for several minutes, delaying the response. You have seen another angle of a video that Mary showed you, showing you another angle. Without going into specifics, can you tell me generally how you feel about the Bodega owner and his response that night?
He is another killer. He is the one who broke my heart. He pushed my son to give it to those killers. He put my son from inside the Bodega. The video showed me when he bring him out and push him out, and they beat my son inside the Bodega, and he's looking at me. And they say, take them out. The video is showing what he did. He's one of the killers. He is a killer.
That's your opinion.
Well, he hasn't been charged, but
right.
the video is hard to really, we stumbled upon the video because people had sent you Instagram pictures, about 25 pictures, and the video was among those pictures. So she was pressing the different pictures, and then when she pressed the video, for the very first time today at Pix 11, she happened to see inside the bodega because some of the accused killers, pulled her son and punched him behind the counter. But there's a blockage, and
Right.
you can't see everything.
It's not a clear
But
angle.
she sees the bodega owner moving toward Junior, and then you see Junior backing up. So she made an assumption that perhaps he was pulling him, but there were two other guys there that are now accused killers. So we don't know what they were doing. You really couldn't see them until they got him out from behind the counter.
Leandra, we have a dozen people indicted. Are you satisfied thus far with the investigation, the way that people are being held responsible so far?
There's more responsible, more than 12.
Okay.
They still have to catch more people
Let's-
involved in the case.
I'm sorry. Let's take a step back. There have been efforts to rename that street in your son's name. How do you feel about that?
In between all those the sadness that I feel, that's not make me happy, but it's okay. I say thank you. It's not gonna bring my son back.
I know.
I just want all the killer, everybody who is involved, like the Bodega, they have to pay too. He's a killer too.
Who else do you think is involved?
The Bodega, I saw
The
what
who?
he did in the
The
video.
bodega owner.
Yeah.
Oh yes, the Bodega owner. Sorry, thank you. I saw the video now, but I haven't seen before. And I saw how he pushed my son and gave it to those killers in front of his face. He was one of them too, at the same time.
Well, we don't believe he was acting with the gang because the gang supposedly got an order from
Her
one of the
actions show he was the part. He's not a gang, but her actions show in the video. It's clear to view.
Leandra, this is on Facebook Live right now, and there's so many people who are commenting. We've got almost 700 people watching live right now, and I want to read to you some of the comments. They're very supportive of you. Maritza Barreto writes, "This is so cruel and disrespectful behavior. The scammers and greedy people that want to benefit from such a tragic and horrific death of an innocent young man. I pray that God vengeance fall on them." I know that you're not outright looking for revenge. You've lost your son. What is the legacy? What is Junior's legacy? And what do you want people to remember about your son?
I don't know what to say about that, Jay. I'm so sad right now. But I would like to remember my son like a good kid, like he was innocent, like he's seen in the video, in her showline from the year 1 through the 15, all his video and Facebook that I have it with him. That's so what my son was, a good kid, innocent kid. They killed innocent kids. That's what they killed. They're not even killing man. He was a baby. There was terrible abuse collecting with everybody.
Mary, you've worked on the investigation. In your opinion, how much headway is the NYPD making in that section of the Bronx with the Trinitarios gang?
Well, they did add many more resources to the 48th precinct, which is where this happened. And I know that they're targeting sections of Brooklyn too,
Yeah.
where you were when we did the Gangland NYC special last week. It's very tough. I mean, I'm working on a case now. There was another young man that was killed the day before Junior. And I'm seeing, according to what's on Instagram, threats being put out against this man's family because they want the police to get the second suspect. There is one suspect apprehended. The other suspect has not been. And the man, his name was Jose Velez.
We know how important the role of social media is in this gang activity. They're using social media to carry out their threats and to, taunt each other.
And to brag.
And to brag about what they've already done. Leandra, in your neighborhood where you are now, have you seen things change on the street?
Now, looks quiet.
It's quiet.
A little bit quiet, but I'm not sure about that. For how long it's going to be quiet.
Why do you say that?
I'm afraid. See what happened with my son. A lot of the gang members are still living outside on the street. At any moment when they decide to do anything, a horrible attack, they're gonna do it. It's not safe. We never know when anything gonna happen.
They're showing one of the murals now, and there are at least 3 that I've seen in the immediate area near where Junior was killed. And there's one that actually has had a change made to the Yankee hat that Junior was wearing, because one of these foundation people, I think he asked the muralist to put on the cap, Justice for Junior Way or Lisandro Guzman Feliz Way, and then people in the area got upset about it, and in the last, say, 12 hours, apparently they painted over what was on the cap. So that also is being displayed on social media.
In the past, it's been common for when someone dies in the neighborhood or they've been killed, someone will create a mural on the corner. But I think this case is special, where people have been very protective of you and your family, and that's good to see. Before we wrap up here, Leandra, I want to thank you so much for coming out again to talking to us, keeping Junior's memory alive, making sure that his legacy and his memory aren't compromised or hijacked by anyone. And you know that you have so much support on social media, and Pix 11 News is going to continue to be here to help you in any way possible. So we want to thank you so much again. And Mary, as always, thank you for being here.
And thank you for supporting me and helping me to find the justice for Junior. I'm here because for my son.
Well, thank you.
I don't want to leave him, like quiet, and the people starting to forget my son, and those kids come out soon to kill more people.
They're not forgetting. The people are not forgetting.
Right. And what you're doing is making sure that doesn't happen.
Exactly. And I'm going to do it.
All right.
Continue to do it.
Well, we want to thank everyone for coming out and sitting down wherever you are, your lunch break, your home, and pulling out your phone or sitting in front of your computer and sharing this post, watching and listening to what Leandra has to say. Pix 11 News is going to continue to cover this story at every turn, and that is going to do it for us this week for another edition of Talk It Out. Please join us next Thursday at 1:30 on Pix 11 Facebook Live. Follow me on Facebook at JDowJournalist, and Mary Murphy at Mary Murphy Mystery. And if you have any information, or if you're seeing something on social media, please tag us as you've already done, and we'll check it out. And if there's something to be followed up on, we're going to make sure that we do that. Until next week, take care.